The first thing that we're going to do is make the hem on the pocket. And according to the directions, that's actually not the first thing that they have you do. But I think that it's better if students kind of get their feet wet on something smaller. The processes are very similar, and once you feel like you've got some success here, it's going to be a little easier to do this larger piece. So to do this step, we're going to need a seam gauge. We're going to use a little half clip, Stampy clothes clip that I've taken apart that we use for a wooden iron. And we need some pins. I've already taken the pattern off of my pocket because I did some embellishing. And if you notice, I have my grosgrain ribbon attached already. But we're going to start with making sure that we have the top of the pocket marked with an up arrow. So we know this is going to be the top of our pocket. Now, according to the directions, we're supposed to fold the upper edge in 1/4 of an inch. And my way of pinning is always we do the two ends first, then we do the middle, and then halfway between. So I call it two ends first, middle, middle, middle. My seam gauge is set at 1/4 of an inch. Make sure that it is at 1/4 of an inch because we don't want to make this bigger than it's supposed to be. And we need to have a parallel fold as well. So I'm going to start by folding and measuring. And I know this is seems kind of picky, but I'm going to tell you this is what makes the difference in a nice project and one that doesn't look so great. So we're going to put our pins in and out of that little fold. Okay, and so I did that end. I'm going to fold this down and measure. I want to tell you this fabric is really nice because it's crisp. It makes nice crisp folds. Makes it a whole lot easier to handle. Sometimes when you have lighter weight fabrics, this is really more difficult to do because it wants to wiggle around on you. So we're probably only going to need about 5 pins for this. So we have the two ends first. We're going to do the middle. And we're going to put one more right there. And then we're going to put one more right here. And do make sure, don't just fold it down. Make sure that you have pinned it evenly at 1/4 of an inch all the way across. Because if you don't, then you're setting yourself up to not have a good looking pocket because the next measurement is based on this one. So to crease this, not everybody has a good thumbnail like I do. And I usually would just do it like this. But this little half close clip will work really well too. You put your fingers on the pin and you just kind of rub back and forth. Don't kill it, but just kind of make sure that you make a little crease with it. This is nice because we don't have to go to the ironing board. We don't have to worry about burning fingers on these little tiny spaces. Now, because that ribbon is there, it doesn't want to stay down quite as well, so I'm going to have to give it a little help. And then the last piece over here. Okay, we have the first fold done. Now, according to the directions, they wanted you to mark the next fold line, and I don't like doing all that marking. We're going to do it with math. So the first fold line was at 1/4 of an inch, and so what we're going to do is measure the top hem of the pocket, and that's 1 inch. So if we take 1/4 of an inch away from 1 inch, our next fold needs to be 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to set this at the 3/4. It's halfway between the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch. I'm going to take my pins out because I don't need them now. And then I'm going to fold this down. Again, we're going to do the two ends first. Fold this just a little bit more. Actually, I like folding this way better because I like my pins going in this way. So, making sure that that's right at 3/4 of an inch. Put my pin in. Come down to the other end. Again, measure every time. because we don't want this to have a curve at the top. We want it to be perfectly straight. And then we're going to go to the middle. And put one there. Again, this is probably only going to take about 5 pins across the top. Put in 5 because that's enough. Don't put in more than 5 because you're probably going to just have more pins to take out than you need. Okay, and then our last little bit. Do you notice how that's kind of wants to curve up like that? We don't want that to happen. So I'm going to hold that with my finger and I'm going to measure again, make sure it's nice and flat, and put that last pin in. Okay, and there's one more thing we need to do to get this pocket to be ready to sew on before we go to the sewing machine, and that is to fold up the bottom edge. And again, we didn't mark the seam line. If you notice, it's a 5/8 of an inch seam line. So we're going to set our seam gauge on 5/8 of an inch. Now remember, this part that's double folded, this is going to be the hem, and this down here is the bottom of our pocket. So I'm going to do it this way. Fold up 5/8 of an inch. This is not 3/4. The other one was 3/4. This one's only 5/8. And I'm going to put a pin in. Again, we're shooting for 5 pins here. We really don't need more than that on this distance. Probably wonder why I pin 2 ends first, then middle, middle, middle. Sometimes when you're pinning, if you pin straight across, you end up pushing the top layer of fabric a little bit. So when it gets to the end, this part actually might stick out a little bit like that, and so it's not going to be parallel across the top. We want a nice right angle here. Okay, so again, I'm measuring every time. I measure every time because I want to make sure that it looks nice, that it is accurate. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do before we take these pins out is we're going to just take this and make a crease with our wooden iron. I'm actually going to leave these pins in here until after I have my hem sewn, and then we'll take them out right before we put the pocket on the bag. So this is what my pocket's going to look like. Again, part of the edges are going to be gone because the black strapping is going to go over the top of them. But I think that grosgrain ribbon is going to make a nice little detail. This is all ready for sewing now.